Hello, everybody. Welcome to our event. Welcome to another Gnomon event sponsored by Lenovo. My name is Josh Herman, Chief Creative Officer here at Gnomon School of Visual Effects. Welcome. We have a really awesome event today, one that I'm personally very excited about because I was also in the Unreal Fellowship, and today we're going to be talking about the Unreal Fellowship and making short films and just generally the whole process of that, and maybe learning softwares and how things like Unreal can kind of change the way that you make things, but also make it more accessible to people who didn't usually, I guess, or used to make short films. So I'm excited about that. Get some housekeeping out of the way. First off, as I said, and you can probably see below, this event is sponsored by Lenovo. Lenovo makes this event and all of the events that you see on a lot of our streams possible. So thank you again to them. They make incredible hardware, so definitely check them out. If you've never looked at them, they're amazing. But of course, thank you for them. Now, before I get into bringing on our guest right away, we're going to go ahead and introduce him very quickly. Our guest for the event tonight is Emmanuel Shu. He's a concept artist based in San Francisco, working in the movie and the game industry. His concept art and illustrations have helped in the visual development of many movies, including Blade Runner 2049, Thor, The Matrix 4, Godzilla, and many others. Alongside his movie concept design, he also works on a number of top video games, including the sci-fi third-person shooter Lost Planet 3 and Star Citizen. More of his work can be found at www.eshu.com. Thank you very much for being here, Emmanuel. Welcome to the stream. Excited to have you on here. Excited to talk about the Unreal Fellowship. It was interesting because I remember we were in the same Unreal Fellowship group, and I remember the orientation day, and everybody was introducing themselves, and I didn't really know anybody there, and so I was scrolling through the list of all the attendees, I guess would be the right word, and I saw your name, and I was like, we never really chatted beforehand, but I hit you up on Facebook, and I was like, hey, we're in the same group together. That's curious to see how this goes, but it was kind of cool. And now you've got a short film that's in what's it called? Like the circuit. Is that the right word?
The festival circuit, I
The
think, is what they're
festival
calling it.
circuit.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Well, thank you. It was an honor to be here, and I still remember that day for sure. Because I think everybody was like, What are we signing up for?
Yes.
What is this?" And I think everybody was doing the same, scrolling through the list,
Yeah.
going, "Do I know anybody here that I can actually talk to?"
Yeah.
Uh, and so, yeah, that was really interesting, and thinking like, whoa, what's going to happen? How's this going to
Mm-hmm.
work? Because for me, uh, it took a long time and a long way to get to that point. I mean, I don't know about you, but
Mm-hmm.
um, whether it was just kind of something you were always wanted to do and it was fine, but for me, it was very uh, because I'm usually really busy,
Yeah.
and I got to a point. Sometimes I do even two jobs at a time,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just there's like zero time. So doing an Unreal Fellowship for a month was like, no way.
Right.
Uh,
Right. Right. Yeah.
but I need I got to a point in my career that I'm like, I need something needs to stop.
Mm.
I was really burning out, so I had just quit my job basically, because I just needed a break. I just had
Right.
to quit my job. So I just said, I'm going to take a break. And then, of course, wouldn't you know it,
Yeah.
the real thing happened. I'm like, huh,
Well,
all
I
right.
was gonna take a break. Well, I guess you took a break from like the status quo of what you were doing.
Yeah, no, but it was like I'm taking a break from client work, and now I'm actually going to do something that I've always wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
But it's kind of forcing me to do that because I've been storyboarding, thinking, writing for like 20 years,
Mm-hmm.
but never did anything.
Like never acting on that. Yeah.
Yeah, never acted on it. I mean, I did. Have you made a short film before?
It was definitely my first short film as well. I was really, for lack of a better word, terrified. Like going into it, I was like, I've never really written anything before, like small things here and there, but nothing like I've never really storyboarded myself. I've never really done all that. So I was like, I don't know how I'm gonna make a short film. Like I've never done one before. Uh, and it was interesting going into it because it it was just you had to do it. You were just kind of every week you had to make progress, and you just start making progress on this thing. And they were super helpful, obviously, breaking down some of the steps and the way that you could do that. But it was cool to get to do something that I had never been able to do before, but I'd always been interested in it, but didn't. I think, frankly, I didn't know also how I would do it. It seemed like such a big production to make a short film.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I honestly didn't know, but I said, okay, I'll block out the time,
Yeah.
and let's just dive in and see. Like, I, I just honestly didn't know how it was going to go. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I knew some people from previous fellowships that were like, yeah, super intense. Like
Mm-hmm.
everything I
Mm-hmm.
heard, like people just kind of freaked me out because they're like, it's super intense. I'm like,
Yep.
you can't be like 6 hours a day, no way. And
Right.
they're like, yeah, it's actually more than that. And I'm like, how's that even possible? Like,
Yeah.
there's no way.
Yeah.
And then when we started, I was like, oh, yeah, I guess it is possible.
Yeah. It was a lot. I remember there was definitely some moments where I was like, "This is really stressful. Like, this is
Oh,
really stressful."
yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know your software proficiency, but like, you know, I was like going into it going, okay, what I need to learn? I thought Unreal, right? I need to learn Unreal. Wow, it was
Sure.
way more than that.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really use or haven't used compositing software for like, I don't know, 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
I started my job doing some compositing,
Okay.
but that was like 20 years ago. So like, so I had to learn. Well, I just learned After Effects because I had it,
Sure.
and then Premiere to cut all the stuff. I never
Mm-hmm.
used that.
Mm-hmm.
Unreal, and
Mm-hmm.
then I kind of had to learn Substance Painter on the fly.
Yep.
All this stuff that I'm like, oh my god, I
It's
don't.
cool though. At the same point, you're like, I guess I'm just gonna. I have to learn this. I have to put this together.
Yeah, yeah, it was cool, but it was stressful, like
Stressful.
you were
Yeah.
saying.
Very stressful.
Yeah, because the stressful part is when you've gotten to a certain point and you know how things should look. Like in your career,
Mm-hmm.
okay, it should look like this, and if you can't get it there, then you
Yeah.
start. Okay, this is not looking like I think it should look. And then that's
Mm-hmm.
when strategy happens. You really have to sit down and strategize. And
Start cutting. Did you cut a lot?
oh God, yeah. I mean, and I'll definitely show some of the earlier cuts. And I
Oh,
mean,
please. Yeah.
and the software aside, I had to learn filmmaking. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, filmmaking is not like something that comes just naturally.
Sure.
At least not to me. And I've been doing film, like I've done animatics. I've been on jobs as an animatics artist,
Mm-hmm.
compositor, model, all the stuff. But you never put it together. You know.
Yeah.
Uh,
Looks like
you-
we have Brian Poole in the chat. Brian is
hey,
here. Brian.
yeah, I'm not even like it's like it's so many
Yeah.
things happening right now. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it was really an interesting experience, and it was a lot more than I thought, in
Mm.
terms of like not only the technical knowledge that was given to you, but the support and the requirement of making a film,
Right.
which is, when I came in, I really thought, well, we're just going to make like a tech demo. That's what I
Mm-hmm.
thought. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
don't know if you thought that, but like we'll make something look good,
Yeah.
and it'll be generic,
Sure.
because 5 weeks, how much time, how
How,
much
what
can
can you
you
really
really dig
do?
into like uh, uh storytelling, like and
Mm-hmm.
all that, because you have to write too. So I'm like, and I think we had to be locked in like 1 week.
Yeah. It was, I think, within like 2 weeks, it was like you should pretty much know what you're doing. Like you should be pretty close to having
Yeah.
a solid idea.
Exactly. And so that first week and a half, I was learning how to cut. And
Mm.
I was learning how do you use Premiere? How do you,
Mm-hmm.
like, how do you even do that? Storyboard. Oh my God. I just kind of scribbled some things and put it in there. Um, but it was very interesting at, the emphasis on making a film. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I had to wrap my head around that one, I think, because
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, because my job's been for the last X amount of years is to make something look good and design it out,
Mm-hmm.
that way. And
Mm-hmm.
then now, I'm like, okay, well, how do I do it in moving picture and do a story. I was like, wow, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
So I started, we all had our team leader,
Mm-hmm.
our mentors, and our team.
Mm-hmm.
And, we all just kind of uh, tried to interface and see how if you could come up with, you know, something that was worthy of, and we had a thesis, right? The
Mm-hmm.
butterfly effect.
Yeah, that was the theme or whatever.
And
Yeah,
I was just
thesis.
sitting
Yeah.
there going, I don't know, what does that mean? I actually
Yeah.
had to look it up because I was like, I wasn't really sure
Mm-hmm.
exactly what it meant. But I wrote something super generic, really,
Sure.
at the beginning, because
Right.
I really was like, tech demo. I want to make this look really, really good. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's just gonna look good, but it's not
Right.
gonna have much. And
Right.
that's what I thought. I was just like, 5 weeks. That's the way it goes.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did that, and I will say that as I was doing that, I was encouraged, by the mentor that we had was Vani,
Mm-hmm.
and she did encourage me to sort of do something a little bit more like maybe me, or something um, that I would resonate with more, because I think my tagline was very generic. It was just like, oh, you
Right.
can just the things you do now affect your future, and
Sure.
I show like some destroyed city, like
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
thing, right? A concept artist, that's what they do
Yeah.
best,
Yeah.
destroyed
Yeah.
city. um but then the more I dug into it, the more I said, it can't be just about that. And the more I kind of started thinking about it, the more I really said, okay, there's some things that I'm always about telling something deeper if possible. And then I was like, okay, what's the opportunity here? What can I actually say? Uh, and it kind of, the butterfly effect evolved into sort of, somebody saying their last goodbyes,
Mm.
and,
Mm-hmm.
and then in the end, it kind of, through a lot of talking and talking to my wife, and I'd be like, and she's just saying, I think you're trying to, because I never got a chance to say goodbye to my mom when she
Mm.
passed. So, uh, she was like reminding me, I think you're trying to have some closure, because it kind of feels like you're talking about that now,
Mm.
like, and I was like, oh, okay, kind of like, oh yeah, maybe, I don't know, and then
Right. Right.
the more I kind of went into it, the more it felt right.
Mm.
So I said, okay, I'm just going to fully go there, and I'm going to make this a little bit like, something I'm saying to her. And it felt right. So I kind of went, but the more I remembered, the more I put it into the storyboards, and I was just, the more I kind of withdrew from my group,
Mm-hmm.
because I could not like keep showing the rough cut and talking about it. I'm like,
Just I need to focus on it. Yeah.
yeah, no, and it was making me, while I was doing it, I was like, I was sad all the time, and I was
Yeah. It's a very emotional. Like
yeah,
that's
I
a
was like,
deep place to go to.
yeah, and I didn't want to keep like, hey, here's the rough,
Right.
and then why
Right.
don't you guys, like talk about? I just didn't want to go there,
Mm-hmm.
and so much so I was pretty quiet,
Mm.
but I think I needed to do that,
Mm.
to get it out there, and it was, it definitely, it took a toll, but it also was really liberating,
Mm-hmm.
um, that way, and it was really. Uh, and then coupled with the learning, it was just like, oh my god, I didn't realize it was going to be so much classes.
Yeah. There was a lot. There was a lot of classes. It
Yeah,
was
it was like,
intense.
oh my god, and I'd be like I've gotten to a point where I think I'm a little older now, and I'm not quite as sharp, and it's like, we've got some. There's some people that I'm texting with from our group,
Hmm.
like shout out to Alyssa. Like we're really formed a friendship, and I was
Cool.
like, I don't get this, and she's like, yeah, I'm lost too. Like it's not easy, you know.
No, no.
And so we go, okay, we got to watch the videos beforehand, and then we'll
Hmm.
try to get in there, and then the next day we're typing, going,
Still
yeah,
lost.
I'm lost, and she's like,
Yeah.
yeah, I was lost 15 minutes ago,
Yeah, yeah.
because
I
you're
mean,
trying
it's
to follow
yeah,
along.
it's not easy to take that many classes while also then trying to make something, which you can't really do during the classes because you want to absorb the information. So it's like there's just a lot of time where you're trying to absorb it, and then later you're trying to do it later, but your brain is also kind of thinking sometimes about the product that you're trying to make. It's like I'm trying to learn about this short film, or and the story or my storyboards or what I'm going to cut or something, but then you're also having to be in the moment about learning whatever they're teaching you at that moment, and it's not always the same thing. So that for me was the biggest hardest part of it because it was so kind of being split into two worlds of like doing the thing and kind of having my brain focused on the short, like you're talking about, which is also something I had never done, like just like you're saying you'd never done. And then learning the software, which was its own thing, and sometimes multiple softwares. Like I had never really used Premiere myself either, so I did my first edit in After Effects, and apparently I didn't realize this at the time, but After Effects is really terrible for
Oh,
doing
it's
sound.
horrible.
For doing sound is really terrible. So like I couldn't do cuts to sound early, and it was really difficult. So, learning all these different softwares, I ended up learning Quixel. You said you did Substance Painter, so it was pretty interesting to go through it and how to keep it all up at the same time. And now afterwards, I realized, like you were saying, many other people were saying that it was an intense experience. It was a lot of stuff to do, and then but it was great. Like I'm really happy I did it. I'm really happy with being able to go through that and just feeling like you know it. I do feel like there wasn't a way 5-10 years ago. I don't know if I could have made something like that myself, even with whatever there was. Like I think Unreal and all the other, I guess, Unreal ecosystem with Megascans and all this other stuff that's part of it makes it so accessible to do that now, where I don't feel like it was 5-10 years ago.
Yeah, I agreed. And I think this is one of those opportunities where I'll always look back and think this kickstarted it all for me,
Hmm.
because like I really dug making it,
Hmm.
I'm just really glad it wasn't just like, okay, it's classes and you're gonna learn
Hmm.
this and you're all gonna just do car driving around a highway because that's what we're learning today. Yeah, it wasn't like that, and
No.
it was so much about filmmaking, and actually, the classes was also, was the support that you needed to make the film, but it was the emphasis was also on the filmmaking, which
On the
surprised
film.
me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
same. Because I had the same thought. It was like it's just like probably just like a tech demo thing, but a lot of the emphasis was on film and story and all that kind of stuff, and it was very I was unexpectedly happy with what the focus was on making a short, an actual short with a story and you know not just pretty pictures, right? That move, not just moving concept art, but that there's a story there, which is great.
Yeah, it's definitely started me into sort of this kind of filmmaking. And I was just telling my friends, the people who helped me out on this short already are hitting me up and saying, "Hey, when are we going to do this again?"
That's awesome.
Because we had such a good time, and
Mm-hmm.
that's the other portion I'll talk about as well. But a big part of it now, I can't imagine making a film any other way. Number one,
Mm-hmm.
and people say, "Well, you still got to go out there and shoot, right?" And I'm like, yes, but like, first of all, I don't, for those who don't know, I'm disabled, so I'm in a wheelchair. So it's not, I can't get up on a tree and do a shot looking down. I just can't do that. And yeah, sure,
Mm-hmm.
trust your ADs or whatever, but
Sure.
why wouldn't I have my own, like, this is my own movie set with whatever world I want, you know.
Right.
So for me, it's just a no brainer.
Yeah.
You know, it just makes complete sense for me. I was just always afraid of it
Yeah.
because, you know, I come from a lot of years of doing 3D, and I'm like, the cool thing about painting is that you can add a lot of detail very quickly, you know,
Mm-hmm.
suggestions. But in
Mm-hmm.
3D, there's not really a whole lot of suggestions happening. Like you want that, you're gonna have to build that.
Right. Right.
And that was a little bit of a turnoff for me, had always been a turnoff for me. But now there's so much out there, you know, like in
Mm-hmm.
terms of like ready-made models,
Mm-hmm.
like I said, mega scans, you know, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I mean, some of it's gonna have to be custom, but that's when you enlist the help of other people as well,
Sure.
because you can't do
Absolutely.
it all, you know. Like for me, I quickly went to my friend Calvin Chu, who was an animator and helped
Mm-hmm.
me figure out the pipeline, you know, of
Cool.
how to. And then luckily he knew Unreal, so you know, he
That's
also
helpful.
kind of said, "Ah, you know, this is how you bring it in." And
Yeah.
but I mean, he was an animator, and that's the other thing. We had a mocap session,
Yeah.
and I was like, "Oh man, how cool is that?" Like that
That
was
was great.
seriously cool. I mean,
It was very
although
cool.
we only got 10 minutes, uh, but
So,
I mean, it was
yeah,
like ten
it's
minutes
still
that
great.
yeah, it was crucial because if I didn't have that,
Mm-hmm.
what am I going to do? You know, like
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
so specific what I wanted, and you guys will see, you know,
Yeah.
what it is later. But it's just was very very specific, and it wasn't
Mm-hmm.
like a vehicle flying, which you know I could probably animate, but it was
Sure.
like a guy doing the thing. So
A person walking. Yeah. Well, is that a good time? Should we play your short, and then do we want to get into the specifics of it?
sure, sure, let's do it.
All right, let's go. Here we go. Do you want to introduce it,
Uh, well,
or
I
should
mean, I'm
we
not,
just play it?
let's just play it.
All right, let's just play it. All right, here we go. Beautiful. This
No,
is
thank you.
beautiful.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
absolutely
music
beautiful.
still gets me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that took quite a bit. I was looking at all the stuff that I was gonna prepare, and I
Mm-hmm.
didn't realize I had done so many cuts. I
Really.
literally think there was probably over 100 files of just cuts,
Oh wow. Yeah.
uh, because I kept cutting shots out, cutting
Mm-hmm.
shots out, cutting shots out, cutting, and in the end, I mean I cut like maybe 80% of the shots.
Yeah.
and just kept exactly the ones. Like even the one where he's just planting, there was
Hmm.
like a couple cuts, trying to
Like
get all
different
fancy.
angles of it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I just said no, one slow push in. That's it. That's all you need if
Hmm.
you want to stay on it. And it was, yeah. I mean, I had to try stuff, right? Because I didn't know either, so I just kept trying. This doesn't work, and I kept trying and it
Hmm.
didn't work. And then I had old music, like I had went to some free music site and
Right.
I downloaded some free music, and I said, just put this in. And as soon as I said, you know what, music actually makes a huge difference. Like I
Huge.
didn't know that. I did
Yeah.
not know that. And I was just like, oh, I put some music that maybe wasn't exactly great, but
Hmm.
it still added. And I was like, oh
Hmm.
wow, music really makes a difference. So I said, you know what? I'm gonna go hire a composer, like because now this is a tribute to my mom. I mean, I don't
Yeah.
want to cheap
Yeah.
out on this,
Right.
so
Yeah.
I'm like, why not? So I just said, okay, I reached out to like people I knew on Facebook. I said, "Do you know anybody?" And
Hmm.
somebody put me in touch with this guy named Michael Vignola,
Hmm.
and he, he was great, and we started working together. I never done any composing. I didn't know what to tell him.
Right.
It was really weird because he's like, "Well, okay, what do you want? I could do this and that." I'm like,
Yeah.
"I don't know, man." Like I was like, like I don't know, and I just said, here's some music from some movies that I like.
Sure.
I
Yeah.
mean, that's as much as I could tell him.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay. And then from there, he just kind of worked out something really basic that was already kind of the bones of what you hear. And then I kind of said,
Hmm.
okay, at this point, it would be great to have a little bit more punch, and then here
Yeah.
maybe a little less. And then I talked to my friend who was also a sound guy. So he started putting in sound.
Something.
And that was really important. His name is Julian.
Hmm.
And the sound was really important as well.
Yeah.
And together I was like, wow, this is pretty good already.
It's
Like,
working. It's working. Yeah.
yeah, it's working. And the mocap
Hmm.
was just, it was pretty much working. It
Yeah.
was pretty straightforward. I mean, strategically, I just said, you know what, I'm not going to overcomplicate. So
Mm.
I'm just going to use Manny,
True.
but I was going to use my own helmet,
Hmm.
and that was it. And because he had already been UV, so
Hmm.
that worked for me. So I just said, okay, substance painter, I'm just gonna,
Paint
I,
this up
I'm
real
just
quick.
gonna,
Yeah.
I'm just gonna paint it because it's all UV perfectly anyway,
Hmm.
because that's the model. So I just tried to be all really strategic on all the stuff I did, because I was like, I'm gonna do all this like super design stuff, because
Hmm.
I know, right? I'm like, oh, maybe now's the time to flex your muscle, make this super alien environment or whatever.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. Get all
Drop
designery with it. Yeah.
Yeah, I completely dropped that. I just said, you know what? I'm gonna make this as simple as possible. And it actually turned out to be the right decision because
Hmm.
when you make it as simple as possible, there was a little bit of a starkness to it, a
Mm.
little bit of loneliness to something that
Hmm.
feels that sort of simple, and it
Sure.
actually worked, in my favor. So I mean, and working in a reel, I gotta say, being able to see. I mean, I'd always been complaining about this to all my friends, and like especially Julian, who's also a 3D guy, and I'd
Hmm.
be like, I gotta see, like depth queuing. I gotta see all this stuff for me to feel the environment. And it's
Hmm.
hard every time you have to hit render and
Yes.
you gotta wait, and so I'm like, oh man, I don't want to do that. And then of course comes Unreal, which is
Right.
like that's what it does really well, and it was like in no time you could see. I felt like I was in the environment.
Hmm.
That really helped me. I mean, every time I open it up, it really still makes me feel like, oh my god, this is just so
Like you're
cool.
there. Yeah.
Yeah, like I'm there, and that part of it, I really really dug.
Hmm.
This is the way to work. The only thing is like I'm used to Maya, so I have the four
Sure.
viewports. I'm moving around super fast. it's a
Hmm.
whole different way of thinking about it, you know?
Yeah, it was definitely like a kind of a transition for your brain to like understand how from like the file management setup to the way the levels are built to even navigating around to that was a whole transition just being in in Unreal,
I
which is
mean,
hard.
yeah, I mean, and this one will be for like Alyssa, but it's like persistent level. We used to use those two words just to scare the crap out of each other because I still don't know what the hell that means. Like, I'm sorry, but
You're like, no,
yeah, I mean, my brain just said, we're not going there. We're just not going
I'm not
there.
learning that.
Yeah. But I mean,
That's amazing.
there's a lot of stuff in there that is real. I mean, it's super powerful, man. There's no
Of
way
course.
you're going to learn everything. And you know, sometimes when I look at the short and I'm going, uh, I got that far, I'm already really like I don't. And of course, it's not like I didn't just like I didn't just do it alone, right? I mean, we had so much support. Like I was
Hmm.
really surprised.
Hmm.
Like we had so many TAs and instructors and everybody that were
Hmm.
always just there to answer your questions. Uh, and if they couldn't, they would just be encouraging regardless.
Yeah.
And it was just like, they were just really trying to help you succeed.
Yeah.
In the end, it was, and that part of it was pretty amazing. Because I mean, I remember I was having ray tracing issues.
Hmm.
So I got to like a D3D something error,
Hmm.
and it was a GPU crashing error, and our TA Gabriella was answering me in the middle of the night like, oh, try this, try that, do this, hey.
Slack, this whole Slack and the support of the whole fellowship was insane. Just the fact that you could post a question in the any of the channels or your own team at like almost any hour because you were up working probably relatively late like I was, and you would get an answer within like 15 to 20 minutes, sometimes faster. You're like, oh, okay, like thank you, like that's super helpful. Not always from the same person, but it was amazing how supportive it was.
Yeah, I mean, you didn't feel like you were just left there without, like,
Mm-mm.
like, and there were so many live labs that you could just
Yeah.
seriously, like, I mean, there were so many sessions where people were just like, all right, let me just take over your thing and
Yeah,
show
let
you,
me just help you.
because I was like, some of it I was like, particle, I don't know what to do. I was just, it was like back in the day when when I first got into 3D. Now we're talking
Hmm.
20 plus years ago,
Hmm.
and I didn't even have a manual. I was just pressing buttons.
Seeing what they do.
Well, what does this do? And then I remember pressing this one button in this software called Strata Studio, and
Hmm.
it said it was radiosity. But then there was like a
Okay.
warning, like you press this button and it's gonna last like a long time.
Uh-huh.
Press it,
Yeah.
crash. It was just a lot of like learning by just trying it out, and
Right.
seeing what happens. um but here it was just like, you got a question and someone's gonna answer you. And the only thing I think maybe I would advise anybody coming in to do is to really up your film knowledge,
Mm.
and filmmaking knowledge, because literally I spend a lot of late nights but just learning about filmmaking.
Hmm.
Like, I mean, liking to watch films and making films is two different things. And
Yeah.
for me, I was like, okay, all right, how do you edit better? Like, and there's a
Yeah.
million videos.
There's so many.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I'm like, oh my god, I'm so
Too
overwhelmed, but I
much.
gotta
Too
start
much. Yeah.
somewhere.
Yeah.
Did
Yeah.
you watch any of this? But you probably already knew it.
I knew some, but not. I mean, not about like editing so much. I was doing a lot of work on cinematography and trying to figure out like what you know, because I'm not a photographer. I don't really work with a real photo, like with real lenses very often. So I was like, what do my favorite films use? What is my favorite cinematographers use on this movie? What is, how are they achieving these looks? So I was looking at a lot of like, oh, most of my favorite movies and cinematography is done by Roger Deakins. So okay, I'm gonna research what he likes to do and like how does he work and all that kind of stuff. And that was kind of how I ended up doing my kind of my own rabbit hole of like what um, like I think everybody goes through their own like little learning journey with it where you're filling in the gaps you don't have that knowledge, so you have to go into that area and kind of learn about it. And so I was learning about that stuff. And then similarly, like I did a lot of cuts. I probably cut at least 50% at least of my short as well. Just deciding like some of it was I don't have the time to do this, and some of it was I don't. It's not going to serve a short story. It's just going to be it's just going to be extra shots to have extra shots for no reason. It's not going to help the story in any way. So yeah, it was interesting to kind of go through all
Yeah.
that.
I mean, it's one thing I did learn is that story trumps all.
Mm-hmm.
And if you are not doing it in support of your story, then it's it shouldn't
Yeah.
be there.
Right.
And like you, I looked at uh, Roger Deakins and a lot of these editors that were talking, and they're actually very generous. They Roger Deakins actually has
Yeah.
a lot of videos that he's I mean, he's
Mm-hmm.
very generous. If you ever want to find out more, it's very accessible and easy.
Super easy. Yeah, it was
Yeah,
shockingly easy.
yeah, and I for me, I was just like, one thing I learned was, what are you trying to say,
Mm-hmm.
and cut
Mm.
everything. Like if you
Mm-hmm.
think you've cut it all, cut more.
Yeah, go further.
And I went to a point where I cut it like to a point where I was like, well, okay, man, maybe
This is
that's a
too
little
far.
too
Yeah, yeah,
like
yeah.
one shot. But then there's also an argument for doing the one
For
shot.
that too. Yeah.
So, stressed over, like, oh, what to use, do I cut? Do I go to black? Do I not, like all this
Mm-hmm.
stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but, in the end, I think story, and I'm really glad I actually went there,
Mm-hmm.
and tried to tell something that meant a lot to me. But it's funny because I have a podcast, and my
Mm-hmm.
co-host said to me, Jan said to me, he said, "Hey, it's a lot to ask of someone to feel something in less than 2 minutes. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's really difficult."
It
So
is.
he's like, I'm rooting for you, but I don't know. That just would scare the crap out of me.
Sure.
Uh, and I that kind of stayed with me, and I
Mm-hmm.
kept going. You really got to make this work, And so I cut out all the fancy moves, and I was
Mm-hmm.
debating like, oh, I should show more establishing shots,
Sure.
but it wouldn't have done anything,
For
besides
the
going,
film
oh, that looks
itself, yeah.
cool,
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was like, okay, okay, don't do that, don't do that, don't do what you know,
Mm.
So it starts off right already, just he's walking, and a lot of people are like, ah, come on, more cool stuff.
Yeah.
Even my friends, more cool stuff. And I was like, no, I don't
That's
think
not
I
what this
need.
is.
Yeah,
Yeah. I think that's great. I think that's really cool. I'd love to jump in to start seeing some of those cuts and some of the stuff on screen. I
sure.
have your screen here. Should I bring it up?
Yeah, sure. Just share it now. I have
Yeah,
an
let's do
image
it.
up.
There we go.
So this image is basically a concept I did right at the beginning, thinking I
Hmm.
was going to do all this really cool looking stuff, uh, and just the palette, and I was like, maybe it should be more dramatic and all this. But as you can see now, it's kind of gone completely away from this because you also want it to feel like it's got hope, and it's not really about this environment that you're trying to establish. Um, so yeah, I mean, this was sort of how I started, and then let's see here. I'm gonna pull up the. I mean, these are just some
Some
cuts.
of your cuts.
Yeah. But I mean, I had, I mean, these So okay, so it was like this, and then it ended up being like that. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's very it got really simplified, but I think in a good way.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, personally. So, but yeah, I mean, it started like with this.
Ooh, yeah, I want to see that one.
So this is super early, but not the earliest. I couldn't find the earliest. I had so many files. I just, you know, but
Yeah.
basically it starts off, and it had a different name. But it starts off with the whole ship flying, and then he's just surveying the land. Uh, yeah, I'll talk you through it. It's really short, and then it comes in, and then it lands. I mean, obviously, super rough animation with like a broken plane, and gets out, uh, looking around, and then oh,
Ooh, yeah.
radiation. And then he goes and plants this tree,
Mm-hmm.
and that was one cut, and it was like, oh yeah, that was the tech demo cut, right? You got to
Yeah.
see all the cool stuff, and it kind of fulfilled the butterfly effect, and that
Mm-hmm.
was that. And then yeah, that obviously changed a lot.
Yeah, a little bit.
And then this is and more rough cut action. I mean, the name is still the old name. I mean, that's so that was a year in the future and all that kind of
Mm.
stuff. But then in the end, I was like, um, you know, it all made sense when I started making the sort of this tribute, and I was like, okay, well then
Mm.
it should be her name.
Right.
This
Right.
doesn't. But I had to design the ship
Mm-hmm.
myself, because
Mm-hmm.
that's what I do. But that took
Yeah.
time. I had to like
Yeah, absolutely.
model it and all that crap. So, but this is just an early version.
So how much of the ship before you started the fellowship was done? Like anything?
Well, I had done a painting from the back uh,
Okay.
before, which is let's see here.
The reason I ask is because I did some of my own custom assets as well, and I felt so bad working on them during
Yeah. So
because I
this
was
is
like,
the painting that had
oh
already
yeah, yeah, cool.
been done before, but it's changed a lot because from the vantage point of where we're looking,
Mm-hmm.
the silhouette wasn't what I wanted it to be.
Right.
So yeah. So anyway, and then so then this became the second cut, which is still really clunky, but you can see the bones of it. This was after the we just quickly put in the mocap,
Mm-hmm.
but there was like no mound or nothing. But I was already starting this whole minimalist look.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but this is like a very in between state, and I was like, oh, okay, I kind of like that silhouette of the guy. So I just said, oh, I'll just change the helmet,
Mm-hmm.
into my
Mm-hmm.
own design, and it'll be cool. But this is with like the old music. But I mean, I cut it all in sequencer, and it
Mm-hmm.
was working. You know,
Mm-hmm.
um, so I just thought, oh, okay, might have something here. But of course, none of the assets were final yet, and yeah, so it was like,
Did you have the music in at this point?
no,
Yeah.
this is like no music.
Okay.
This one, and I had like some really old. So the music here demo. Oh, okay. So this is interesting. So this is where I cut in this music from Iron Man. Oh no,
Okay.
it's not Iron Man. Avengers.
Uh-huh.
And this is the thing I gave to the composer. I said, I really like kind of this kind of feel of music, and he took it and made it something completely different, but it strangely appropriate.
That's cool.
Um, but I took in Mixamo stuff and I put it in there. But yeah, Now looking at it, definitely looks horrible.
It's always hindsight, though.
Yeah, it's like, oh, cringe.
It's part of the process, right? Of working through what you're gonna get
Yeah, but you
to.
see the bones of it though, you know?
Yeah, exactly. We have a question from the chat, which was asking what made you decide to use mocap for your character animation. Uh, you had said it earlier, but you're not an animator, so it was probably mocap or nothing, I would imagine.
Yeah, it was mocap or nothing, and I did know an animator, and he did
Hmm.
help me, but I think for him to hand animate that would have probably taken a while,
Yeah.
and it would have been a lot of work. I definitely wouldn't have known what to do with it
Hmm.
myself. I definitely would not be doing it. Um, but it's one of those things where that's when you enlist the help, and
Hmm.
from other people, and I think it's uh, so important to have,
Hmm.
because the whole you know just knowing that like right now the film has gotten a lot of attention with the whole festival circuit we're talking about,
Hmm.
and in the end I look back, it's never without the team, like of course the people at Unreal who are teaching you and encouraging
Sure.
you, and making a real point to instill some of these filmmaking philosophies, and of course also the round the clock support, but for me, my crew, which is like I told you at the beginning, they all want to get do another one,
Hmm.
so we're planning another one, and I just can't imagine not doing it in Unreal,
Yeah.
uh, and we want to make it even better now.
Hmm.
And it's just one of those things where it's like it took this whole crew,
Right.
like you literally, I just could not have done it alone. So that part I'm super appreciative of it. And it's just even also to the YouTube videos that are out there.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
Oh, this looks like it's in Unreal.
yeah, so now we're in Unreal. I am, and I always tell everybody, I'm by no means an expert. I, I'm, I hack the crap out of everything, and I've done that my whole career, right? When you're a concept designer, you pretty much just hack what you can,
Hmm.
and I come from the days of like Electric Image and Form Z, so it's like way back where you just have to find ways to make it work,
Mm.
uh, and whatever ways you can to circumvent things you do. So, but Unreal is just so. I mean, it's just so good at what it does that it didn't take me long to like this thing like
Sure.
this. It wasn't. But I mean, I was very specific. But I mean, it doesn't look that different from the final output. Yes, I had some color grading,
Hmm.
but it didn't it doesn't look a whole lot different. Yeah. So uh, I could have gotten it all in Unreal, I think, in terms of the color grading,
Hmm.
but then at that point I was just like, okay, I have limited time. I know how to color grade in
Right.
post, so I'm just
Yeah.
going to render flat,
Right.
uh, which is what I did. I mean, right now you're not seeing it flat, but I rendered it flat with that slope thing. I don't. Did you use that at all?
I didn't.
Let's see. Of course, it's probably my hard drive spinning up, so it's
Yeah,
it's
you're to hear
it's
it.
it's thinking for a second. But we can talk while it's. I don't know why my hard drive, when it starts spinning up, it always thinks for a while. It's either that or it's crashed. No, okay, go.
Well, hope it's just thinking.
Of course, Brian's here, and I'm gonna feel like super frigging like an idiot. Anyway, where the hell? I'm just going to. It doesn't help that I haven't been in a reel for a while.
Yeah, 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 of course. It's always interesting going back to an old project file and being like, oh yeah.
No, I mean, I actually went in there to take a look, but see, this is when you hit
Oh,
those,
got you.
it flattens everything out so that you can grade better.
Mm-hmm.
So I was doing this, for everything. But if you look at it, like there's no front of the engines.
Yeah, I was gonna ask like the front of the ship
Yeah,
as you were rotating around. I was like, oh,
yeah. So I mean, I didn't finish the design here.
yeah,
I just said screw it. I just where do I need to see it from? That's
right.
that's what I'm going to do.
Yep.
I was not going to I wasn't going to mess around and
You were
like
never
this
gonna see
shot.
it.
It's like yeah, whatever you see, that's what I'm gonna do. I'm not gonna do
Yes.
anything more than that because I don't got
But
time.
but isn't that also like how filmmaking is supposed to be? Like you don't make that's like why facades are a thing. Like you just
Yeah, it's
build
like
the
super
outside of the
guerrilla
building.
filmmaking, I think, for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but it is Unreal. It can handle it. It's
Yeah.
just that if I don't see the front, then I'm not going to spend 1 second on it because I need that second for everything else.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, so yeah. I mean, but I mean, I repainted him.
Hmm.
Basically, I wanted this, have all this texture, so that it just didn't feel like this shiny new thing. And then I put my helmet um, on him. And I know a lot of people ask me about the shimmering effect.
Yeah, everybody we got a couple chat people in chat
Yeah,
asking about those heat waves.
yeah. I mean, I actually got it to work in Unreal,
Oh,
but if
really?
I wasn't having that ray tracing problem, and
Hmm.
the other thing was I was running a little bit out of time because I basically was like playing with the particles, and it worked. It was a distortion thing that
Hmm.
actually works. Um, but I was having such a hard time getting the speed right
Mm.
that I said, you know what? Like, I know I can get all the smoke. I got it all in the scene,
Hmm.
but I just couldn't. I just couldn't dial it to the right speed. And I was like, all right, I know I can do it in After Effects.
Mm.
So I said, oh, screw it. But I actually got it to the point where it was figured out. I could. It's just that last bit of, and I was like, oh, I don't want to ruin it because it just looks the speed looks off, and I didn't know how. And at that
Hmm.
time, the fellowship was done.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, the fellowship was over, and I was like, oh, I'm really, what am I going to do here? And the I was having a problem with ray tracing and those particle effects not working while using ray tracing.
Hmm.
They would just disappear.
Hmm.
And later on, I had found, like much later, that you have to use a -1 when you force ray trace, and that brings it back.
Mm.
And it worked after that, but I didn't know that. So um, anyway, that's just a
Not till
thing,
yeah.
and don't ask me the details of that because I can't tell you.
So
Like
in what we see in the final, is that an After Effects one or is that a Unreal one?
the final is After Effects, yeah,
Got it.
and I had to learn how to do that in After Effects, but at least the dials were clear, speed,
Sure. Yeah.
But in Niagara, it's not that clear, and you
Hmm.
have to hunt through a lot of, like, there was a night where all my friends and I were like hunting for the right,
The
and in the
settings.
end, we got the butterflies to work for the
Hmm.
other shot, but the heat was starting to look right, but not quite there.
Wasn't quite there. Yeah.
So After Effects came to the rescue, and I didn't honestly didn't know After Effects either, but that thing was so easy to do in After Effects
Yeah.
that
Just
I could figure it out.
did you end up having to like roto him out or like do a render of him out? Like
Yeah, so I had to, I rendered, I used movie render queue, and I rendered with EXRs and the
okay,
Clown Pass, and it
got it.
worked well enough, at least for me to get to get it to look decent.
Yeah.
It was like super dirty. Like anybody who is a comper looks at my comp is going to be like, you're an idiot, but
Yeah.
it got done.
It's done. That's all that matters. Yeah.
It's done, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's I'm just looking at chat a little bit. Yeah, hey Brian. So model the ship in Maya. Uh, super dirty model. Super fast. and I chose it to be more reflective because I didn't have to UV it. Um,
Just straight up materials.
yes. Oh well, I mean the engine wasn't. The
Okay.
engine was. I had actually textured it. Um, I mean, it's not the
Hmm.
best
Hmm.
material in the world, right? A lot of this stuff is like super janky, like, but you don't see that.
Yeah, not at all.
And you know what are you know it's just enough. Like when you're that far away, then it's fine.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I was just banking on what you see on your lenses, and um, so that's the slope thing. Where is it? Da, da, da. So it you wouldn't notice it. And of course it's a little bit of sleight of hand. You would look at the person walking and not everything
Of
else.
course.
Because
Yeah.
if you're looking at the engines, then I didn't really do my job. you know.
Your
But yeah,
composition is also you have it like a lot of things pointing at the character. The character's walking, so it's like they're going the opposite way in the screen.
yeah. And then this took a little bit to get those butterflies, and they still don't really work that great. But again, it's one of those things where hopefully you're not just looking at the butterflies,
Hmm.
because that could be, you know, that could be that could be a problem if that's all we're looking at.
If that's all,
But
it,
yeah,
it still works pretty well though.
yeah, they work. I mean, I think in the end, I was just so surprised at how easy it was to make a lot of this stuff. Some of it was really hard, like the butterflies. I just don't understand Niagara, and I'm
Mm.
just like, I'm back in the electric image days where I'm just like pressing buttons, going, "What does this mean? What does this do?" And then oh, it does that. Oh, now I have no more. Oh God, what did I just do? You know, a lot of that. But in the end, I really like Unreal's lighting tools. Uh,
Hmm.
because I'm a kind of I was a photographer before, and so lighting is important to me.
Hmm.
uh, and it gets the mood so fast. And I just completely, yeah, it was so good. uh, and started animating stuff again. I mean, I hadn't animated in like tens of years.
Hmm.
But it's kind of fun, to go back to doing some of those camera animations and stuff like that.
Sure.
But I
There's a
see
question about the water
the,
material. Yeah.
the submission process for the festivals.
Yeah, I'd love to hear about that.
And yeah, so I was telling you at the beginning of the call when we were just getting on, it's actually really funny. So I did this thing. I'm done with it, and then I just put it. I put it everywhere. I put it on LinkedIn, and I said, oh, did this thing. And
Hmm.
after a while, somebody from, I think, Spark Festival, Spark something, said, hey, looked at your thing, and I just really want you to, show it in the festival. Why don't you submit it to our
Hmm.
festival? And here's some code, because they had already finished. They had closed the,
Oh, they'd already closed submissions.
yeah, they closed submissions, so waiver only. And so here's a waiver code, and why don't you do that if you can, if you want to, and you can use Film Freeway. And I'm like, what's Film Freeway? Like, I had no idea what festivals were.
Hmm.
I don't know. I mean, I've never done anything like this. So I look it up, and I sign up, and I do my profile, and then I look up Spark, and I go, okay, I'm enter the thing. Good. And then now I get sucked in and looking at, I didn't know, but there was like hundreds of festivals.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, oh my God, okay, well, if I'm doing that, I might as well do other ones, right?
Sure.
So I'm like signing up, signing up, signing up, signing up. And it's not like every one of them you have to pay for.
Right.
Like, it's not free. So some of it is maybe $5 all the way to 40, 50, $60.
Hmm.
And I'm just like, I'll write it off. I'm do it. And then I'm just like, I just submit, 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 submit. After a while, I'm like, um, yeah, this is getting really expensive. And I'm also not looking at the festival. I'm just signing up for everything under the sun. I was
Yeah.
about to click submit on this one that was like women only.
Oh,
And I was like, oh, I'm glad I
like
caught
oops.
that.
Yeah, good catch. Good
Yeah, and
timing.
I was looking back, going, okay, stop being, like so excited, and
Yeah.
look through the festivals and see actually which one you would fit in, and then submit it. Because if you don't fit there, then you're not going to get in anyway, right? I mean,
Right.
so I really, took the time, and I was much more selective,
Hmm.
and then said, okay, I also found this category called microfilm, which I thought was really appropriate for what we do. Like all the epic stuff. It's a microfilm. It's under 2 minutes. It's a microfilm,
Yeah.
and I was like, wow, that's perfect. That's a perfect category, because I always had a problem calling this a short film, because I thought,
Sure.
I don't know, seems really short for a short film. So so then I started, yeah, applying for the microfilms and only the short film festivals.
Hmm.
And then I started, getting in and then winning some awards, for those specific short film festivals.
Hmm.
And then I submitted to some social media sites, yeah, on YouTube, and then it just kind of went from there. My main goal was, like, I had put so much into this in terms of um, you know, emotional content, that I just thought it was. My main goal was actually not to win anything, but to get it out there,
Hmm.
and because I got so much feedback, I never got that much feedback on my concept work. I never got
Right.
so much feedback from anything I've done in my life, but I got so much feedback here because I think it connected with some people,
Hmm.
and they were not shy in telling me that they had lost someone, and that
Hmm.
they felt like it helped them, like either plant some seeds, relive some things, or have some of their own closure, whatever that is. I just felt, I got a lot of emails and comments like that, that it just made it all worth it, because, what's better than to actually connect, like with somebody
Absolutely.
else, and using this to do that. I think, it was just, that was probably the best ever experience, like better than winning any award. I mean, honestly, I'm just humbled that, that someone would give it an award, but I just so glad people got to see it,
Hmm. Hmm.
uh, and I'm so glad I found this tool, because I knew about Unreal for so long, but I couldn't teach it to myself,
Right.
like not in this way. Like, you need it, like, hey, there's something at stake here. You got 5 weeks. You have to do this.
Hmm.
And to me, I was like, oh my god, like, okay, I got to do this. I got to do this. And I think, uh, thank goodness that I had been learning software for a lot of my life, and I knew what to prioritize,
Hmm.
because I also saw that, there were a lot, like in my group, there was a lot of like, oh my god, you're trying to do what, like, and it was like minutes and minutes, and I was like, wow, that's a lot of, like, that's a
That's a
lot,
lot of work.
like,
Yeah.
how, and but I mean, I was just blown away by a lot of the work that, that was coming out of it, and I was like, okay, shit, okay, you did a good job, but a
Yeah.
lot of it was just like, simplicity to me was the key.
Hmm.
I think people are just so excited, they're like, we really
Of
want to,
course.
we want to, we want to do all this stuff, and I just think, to me, having a real good plan really helps,
Yeah.
and having good help helps.
Absolutely.
In terms of technical, yeah, I mean, my scenes are usually a mess. Uh, yeah, I'm pretty horrible. My sequencer knowledge is, mediocre at best, but I can put together some stuff,
Right.
and hopefully it kind of works. But I kept it really, really simple. I mean, you can see, from this, I actually even, let's see, is it? it helps when you remember your shots. There you go. Like a lot of these shots, just keep it really simple, static camera.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
try not to do any fancy anything. This was gone from the composition. Just
Yeah.
like your usual hide it,
Just
but then you'll
delete
forget
or
you hid it.
spawnable. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's just yeah, fun times, man. Um,
How much of like the assets and stuff? I know you use Manny, but you made the own helmet. You made the ship, or at least as much of you could see. The rest of it, whether it be the materials or the rocks or any of the background stuff, how much of that was stuff that you made, or that was
so
just marketplace?
everything
Or
is mega scans.
okay,
Everything is mega scans. Every rock is a mega scan because you know, you just cannot beat mega scans.
right,
Like it just
just
looks
the
so damn
fidelity.
good. So
Yeah,
I maybe I tweaked the material a little bit, but I don't. It that material is so complicated that I looked at it. I was like, I can't do anything with it. So
you're like, no, no, I'll just keep it as
yeah, I was
is.
like, oh, it's fine. uh, but it's just one of those things where you kind of don't mess with something that looks right.
Right.
Let's see, it's got the slope thing on it, but I mean, every rock is just from mega scans. Oops. So I had to it had this weird thing. I don't know what happened, why it did it, but I couldn't figure it out. You could see through this plant,
Hmm.
but yeah, it's fine. But yeah, I mean, I just was like shooting for the shot, basically, textured for the shot, and like try to make it look as good as I could with the time I had. But
Yeah,
yeah, and,
and
and
those are all
this
just.
this was actually, I think this was from the ground itself was from Quixel.
Oh, really?
I actually found making ground easier than in Quixel than Substance.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and because I couldn't actually go in and do this like texturing the helmet in Quixel, I just didn't know how. But
Hmm.
I kind of knew how in Substance. But the ground looks so much better in Quixel, so easy.
Right.
Like
The Quixel
so,
Mixer.
yeah,
Oh, Quixel Mixer is so fast. It's
yeah,
crazy.
it's really good. But of
Yeah.
course, you zoom out and it looks like this, right?
I was gonna say, like, when you zoom out, you can see that there's a plane on a plane. And so,
Yeah.
were you doing that to have like a higher res version? I
Uh,
guess.
okay. So why you're gonna laugh. Why I did this was because I did this in Quixel and I didn't know how to do it for the whole environment. I was like, I'm not gonna figure it out because you know what? I don't have to.
Hmm.
And then so I just said, oh, screw it. I'm just gonna, this is the shot anyway, so you won't see it. So
Hmm.
whatever.
Yeah. I mean, it
And
works.
yeah, and then when I go to the long shot, I just hide it.
Right.
So a lot of it is just like trying to get like um, it's just trying to get really creative with how cheap you do something.
Hmm.
And I think that's just the name of the game. Even I think even if you brought a camera out to the real world, you're doing the same thing anyway.
Yeah.
You're really going, okay, how can I get coverage without seeing that car over there and that street? And you just try to make it work.
Yeah. You cut around things when you hit, you know, uh, technical or whatever issues. You just shoot around them. You work around them. You're on limited time or limited budget. I think that's very equal to like what this kind of process is like if you're doing a short film by yourself or with a very small crew.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, it is exactly what it's like to me. But yeah, I mean, it's just yeah, and you get all this like depth of field and all the stuff, and I was like, ah,
Hmm.
yeah, this is just so good.
Yeah, the
But
depth of field was
you
killer.
can't be in Maya doing this.
No,
Like
no,
it's
you
just
can't.
it's not going to happen. I just wish there was a quicker gap from Maya to Unreal.
Hmm.
Like
What were
I don't
you
know,
using Maya for the most? I know you modeled the ship in there, but
Yeah, I mean, I'm an old time Maya user, so that's kind of where I'm still in it. So, do you use Maya? Is that what?
I do. I use Maya and ZBrush the most. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, the helmet was done in ZBrush,
Okay.
and then brought into Maya, and then the ship was basic Maya stuff, and then I usually I use a V-Ray and all that kind of stuff. But man, I'll tell you, like I tell anybody, like you want to do environments, like anything outside, anything naturalistic, you'd be stupid not to investigate Unreal.
Right.
And then now I'm getting more into the inside stuff, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
finding that if you set it up right, actually, Unreal 5, um,
Lumen.
it's pretty damn good.
Yeah.
I just only wish there was like 4 viewports and all this stuff that I know, like,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
you know, I mean, it
I
was
ended
just
up
the outline that was
cloning.
driving me crazy.
I
Like,
ended up cloning my viewport, so I would have like one that I would work in, and then one
yeah,
that I would
I
like
had
shoot
that. Yeah.
in. Yeah.
So this
That was
whole
helpful.
open folder outliner thing was killing me. So I spent a lot of time just trying to find like how to God,
Like
where's
organize
that
it.
key now? Oh man, it's always like that.
It's also different depending on what scene you're in or
No,
what game
because
you're
you
in.
you can either use control
Oh.
or alt, and then you can close it and open it, and everything would be closed.
Oh, I see.
You can do
Is
that
it
because
shift?
it was driving me insane that everything was open. I had to scroll like this. It's not efficient, you know. But I forgot what the key is. I'm stupid.
Try
Um,
shift.
yeah, I've tried that. I
I
tried
don't know.
every
Yeah.
combination so
Hmm.
far.
It's
I don't
something
know
else
what.
we can't remember.
It's always like this.
Yeah.
But I mean, it does exist. So if you really want that function, definitely look at it. But so far, I've actually been in Unreal 5, and I really like it.
Oh, cool.
Um, and so yeah,
And
I mean, it's one of those things where it's like that's it. Like the bounce light.
hmm
But I mean, honestly though, this is 4, and it looks pretty good to me.
it looks great.
Yeah,
Yeah, it looks great.
and it's not like because I'm a genius. It's because it was very easy to do.
Right.
Like
Yeah. What did you
honestly,
end up using for your lighting?
sorry.
What did you end up using for your lighting?
Oh, it's as simple as it gets. I mean, I just used a simple. See here, here I go. Uh, I just used a simple sunlight.
And that's it.
That's it. With the sky, with the atmosphere, sky
hmm
atmosphere. I didn't. The post processing is all normal. There's not supposed to be a point light, but I always mess it up because I always I do the control L to change the light around, and then uh, inadvertently I'll add a
hmm
light
You're making
always.
a light on accident sometimes.
Yeah. So some of the lights, like I have a sunlight, but I'm accentuated, certain things,
Mm-hmm.
because the sun may not be giving me exactly the kick I need.
Right. So you just kind of boost it a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I'll add some fills, and I'm literally just lighting for the shot.
hmm
And
So
that's
for every single shot, you were relighting, or were you creating like a
um
lighting setup that you were?
there was some shots that I was like making sure that like this shot was like really important because that's
hmm
the look back.
hmm
That's the shot that's supposed to get you to really see that he is deeper than just walking away. I mean, he really
Right.
is looking back and having a lot of thoughts, and you needed to feel that. And I
hmm
didn't want to make it like I didn't want to make this tone
Right.
anymore because that was just too drastically like not it was a very dark feeling, and this is actually it's got a sense of loneliness, but it also has a sense of hope.
hmm
And I really wanted to make sure some of those warmth came through. Um, and it really wasn't the I mean the light just wasn't coming through the way I wanted it to. Some of the reflections on the body and all that. So I just kind of fudged it with a little bit more of a light. But yet it still had to look natural.
Right.
It couldn't look like, oh my god, somebody put a spotlight.
Oh, that looks really, yeah.
Yeah,
The
it's
lighting's
like
like not consistent.
what?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, a lot of those kind of decisions, and then the other shot that was really big was whoops, was this one. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
because I had multiple cuts, but in the end, no multiple cuts now. It's just one really slow push in, which is, your camera just slowly
Mm-hmm.
pushing in so that you get into the action more. Uh, and, that light really helps pick up, the reflections, and gives it that naturalistic feel.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, I mean but that's it for lighting. I mean, it's like, oh yeah, that looks great. But I'm like, I really didn't do a whole lot here.
What about
It's
that
pretty much
last,
just the sun.
the last shot, the years later shot? The lighting seems different. Is it just very similar, just the sky?
This one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it again, so you can add another sunlight that you
Mm-hmm.
can say that there is actually another sunlight here. Uh, whoops. Let me. How am I? Yeah, I mean, you see this. This is another sun that you could have show up, but
Mm-hmm.
that's all I did. And then I used the sky atmosphere to really dial in some of that more alienly looking kind of landscape
Mm-hmm.
feel. Let's see if we'll do it here. No, it's not doing it. Okay, I'm stubborn. Let's see here, and I'll tell you. I have to get back into it to really. It's not. It's pretty much. I think it is. Yeah, that's the sky atmosphere. It's these settings that will give you this more like
Mm-hmm.
reddish, alieny planet looking
Mm-hmm.
thing, and it's really just this and the Mia controls, the
Mm-hmm.
Mia, this one. And it's a tweak of the two settings,
Mm-hmm.
the Rayleigh scattering and the Mia, and then also some of the. It's so easy to get this kind of burnt sky kind of feel. I really loved it, and so I just kind of played off of it. But oh, and I think on this one I had a lot of cards. Hold on, I had these. I don't know if it's in this file, but I had these cards. Yeah, see these cards?
Mm-hmm. Oh, for fog.
Yeah, and they were moving. I
Mm-hmm.
animated them, um, but it's too little to notice anyway. But it's not. It's literally old school techniques.
Yeah.
Like that's what I used to do way back then
Right.
because it's the cheapest way to do it.
Right. The
You know,
cheapest and fastest way
and
to
I
do it. Yeah.
remember like it's funny because I come from that, really old school way of doing it. So I'm like, okay, how about matte painting? Like
Mm-hmm.
camera projections would be perfect.
Yeah.
But I remember asking some of the TAs, and they're like, "What? Why would you want to do that? Like, why wouldn't you just build it? Like,
Just
there's
put
so
it in
many
there then.
assets, and
Yeah.
and Unreal can handle it. But I'm like, but I could literally like that camera move. Camera projection would be the best thing
Yeah.
ever.
Just put it on a plane. Yeah.
Yeah,
I could do
exactly. And
that.
you're like, oh
Yeah.
man, because camera projection you can project on geometry so that
Yeah.
it warps, right? It,
Yeah.
it has some parallax, and I didn't know how to figure it out, and there was no YouTube videos on it,
Mm.
so I was like, oh, whatever, But I
Just build
mean,
it.
just build it, and like so I just built it. So this is just mega scans,
Mm-hmm.
and mega scans. I love mega scans.
Yeah, they're fantastic, and it's so
I,
easy.
I just can't wait to. They just need to, they need to do more.
More of them.
They literally need to scan the world.
Yeah, yeah. I'm sure they're on their way. That's
Yeah,
interesting.
and like the water. Somebody was asking the water.
Hmm.
Honestly, I got the water from some other scene. I was looking through the
Okay.
marketplace and something that had animated water, I'm ripping that off.
You're like, I'm
I'm
taking that.
figuring out how
Yeah.
to do it. Like that is a, like you can copy and paste between different Unreal projects. And
Hmm.
to me, that's a godsend, right?
Right.
Because that's what I do in Maya. I have like three Mayas open and I copy and paste between things.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
I don't have to keep importing. It's at the wrong scale, and I don't know where it is, and all this crap. So here, I just open that scene. I know you can merge, you can
Yeah.
migrate,
Migrate.
but I just copied and pasted, and that was it.
Oh, it worked?
Oh
I
yeah,
didn't know
you
you
can
could
just
copy.
copy
I
and
know you could
paste
do it
stuff.
in Maya. I didn't know you could do it in Unreal.
Yeah, I did that. Copy and paste, and it's good to go. And I was like, yeah, yeah, that's what you need.
That's what you want. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm like, yeah, man, and making this landscape, honestly, it's the easiest thing.
Mm,
Like I gotta say, I mean, it was a joy doing it. That
mm,
part of it, it was a joy doing it. The only
mm-hmm.
thing that was hard was sort of because this is my bread and butter. It's easy,
Sure.
right? Like learning, just kind of doing landscape and doing the lighting, but and it's very simple tools, right? It's a sun and
Hmm.
it's some atmosphere, and that was it. Like literally, that is it. But for me, the hardest thing was like the butterfly, like that you
Yeah.
have on there. Like I literally spent like 2 nights, and then my friend had to come in and go, I don't know Niagara, but I know particles. Let me take a look. And it was like everybody's like, what the hell is that? Is? And it's not like super hard. It's just one of those things that I don't think we concentrated on because we had so many things to do.
Sure. Yeah. So many
So
disciplines.
that was the hardest thing to me, and I got this tree from some other scene that was already animated.
Okay. Right.
And
So
I
the
was just like,
trees
yeah,
and all that.
awesome.
Yeah.
It's animated already. Good
I'll
for
take
me.
that. Yeah. It looks great.
I
It's.
mean, it's just a way of putting it together.
Hmm.
It's you absolutely is. I mean, I really think it's very straightforward for a lot of people.
Mm,
If they would just let go of being very specific, I think.
mm,
Because if you're, oh no, that can't be that kind of tree. It has to be pine tree, and
mm-hmm.
now that's when you run into the problem. Then because now you're modeling a pine tree, you're
Yeah.
animating a pine. Like find something that will fit, that will tell your story. Like
Hmm.
I don't think anybody cares what tree this is. I don't even know what this is. So
Right.
as long as it looks and feels right, I think you know that's all that matters.
Absolutely.
You
Kind of
know.
talking about your bread and butter. Do you think you will, or do you see other people using Unreal 4 or 5 for keyframes and environmental concept art like a lot more? Or do you think like just maybe your insights on that?
Uh, I
Because you're saying it was like a joy to do and it was so easy to do. It
well,
seems
let's
like
put
it
it this
would
way: if
be.
I had to do an alien landscape right now,
Hmm.
um, very high chance I would be using Unreal.
Right.
Very high chance. Will I paint on it afterward? Probably.
Hmm.
But then again, I mean, I would definitely paint in to get more fidelity. Just because when you're a
Sure.
concept guy, you just nitpick the crap out of stuff, and
Yeah.
it's so much easier just to go. I add a stroke here, add a stroke there, and I'm good to go.
Hmm. Hmm.
I can add that cloud, but here you do have to get more specific. If you want this to be clouds and that not to be, and that would take you time.
Hmm.
But this would get me 90% there,
Sure.
and it would take 50% of the time it used to because it's so easy, especially in Unreal 5.
Yeah.
The bridge is built into Unreal 5, so you just pull in and you're good to go. But I mean, look at how
Right.
broken this is. If I'm looking from
From other
another,
directions.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
if I showed you that, people are like, it doesn't look
I
so
don't know
good.
about that one. Yeah.
Yeah, not so good, But then you go back to where you're supposed to look, then it looks right.
Right.
So I think it's also being efficient, and just knowing your tool. But I mean, I've seen some really good interiors now that I'm like curious about. Like
Mm.
okay, maybe I'll do that. Uh, Also, I'm also contemplating in showing the directors, maybe some VR, you know,
Yeah,
uh,
absolutely.
and being able to scout in this is crucial.
Yeah,
The only thing is in 3D is that you have to kind of finish,
yeah,
that the scenes have to exist in 3D. So
yeah, yeah.
so
That makes
that's why
sense.
the map painting projection really could have been something for me.
Right. Yeah, because
I'm
like you were
trying to be
saying it
power.
earlier, like you have to, in a painting, you can suggest. Like it doesn't all have to be completed, but in 3D it does, or at least to a certain degree to where it's not like distracting, right? Or
Yeah.
it doesn't look bad from a certain angle, like you were saying. But I could see it being incredibly valuable to a director or a DP or somebody to create a space like this and then let them be in it and scout in it
Yeah,
could
so
be
I mean,
awesome.
that was happening in already recent movies that I've been in.
Hmm.
Except I think the people who are using Unreal, everybody's just starting,
Right.
so they don't really actually know the power of Unreal. And I
Hmm.
think after this fellowship, and especially since that's something that I really like doing, you can really showcase it. I
Mm.
think in terms of what it really can do for you.
Hmm.
And it's a I mean, it's a sort of a must use tool right now in it's the way I look at it.
Yeah.
But I am wishing that it had if I could do a projection, matte painting
Hmm.
projection. Oh my
Hmm.
god! I mean that.
That's your number one ask, it sounds like. Yeah.
I mean, because for me, it's just like if I wanted to put a destroyed city in the background,
Hmm.
now I gotta make a 3D thing. I gotta texture it correctly.
Yeah.
So you're gonna UV it, texture it, and then light it. Versus if I just had a simple geometry, I can
Hmm.
map my paint on it with all the complexity that need to be there, and I have a certain amount of parallax. That could be really
Hmm.
cool.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
I know it's not showcasing obviously, like you know, Unreal is
Unreal
like I can
3D.
speed up all the polygons, I can
Right. Right.
render all the stuff. So I mean, but that's just one thing. It's fine.
Yeah. Of course.
But yeah, I mean, it was just I just can't believe that we actually got that made.
Hmm.
Like I'm
It's pretty
sitting there
crazy.
going, everybody got theirs made.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody didn't. To whatever quality or to what they wanted, I don't know, but I just know that it was all done,
Hmm.
and some of those stuff was like, oh my god, like what are you even thinking? Like there's so much stuff in there. Like how did you do that?
Yeah, there was some that were much longer than mine and had more dialogue. Like you and I didn't do really dialogue. That was
Oh yeah,
something
that's
where
the
I
other
was
thing.
like,
Yeah. So dialogue, I was like, I want to do this with no dialogue.
hmm.
You know, I didn't want to. It wasn't a technical thing. It was just that I thought, well, can I emote and get you to feel something with nothing but
Hmm.
the cuts and the animation and the
Hmm.
music and all that added. And I actually think it probably would have been well. I mean, in this short, it doesn't need any. He's by himself. There's nothing to say unless he's crazy and talking to himself. But I mean, that's it.
No, it doesn't
So
add to it. Yeah.
yeah, it doesn't add. It doesn't like dialogue doesn't always add. It
Hmm.
can, but it doesn't always add. So
I mean,
one
yeah,
less thing, right?
absolutely. That for me, it was purely technical. I was like, I don't want to sink too much of my time into getting lip
Yeah,
synced and
'cause
dialogue, and
yeah. I
that's a
mean, that's
whole
the thing.
thing.
It's like I thought, okay, if I did anything with the metahumans or dialogue, then it would just be a scene with the human and the
Hmm.
dialogue, and that's it. Because it's basically a technical test of how to make that work.
Sure.
Because, like for me, I have like if I'm gonna put dialogue, then it has to really feel like really good,
Right.
and that's difficult.
Hmm. Absolutely.
I mean, any way you look at it, it's difficult. So
Yeah. I definitely watched a lot of other people bite off a lot more than I feel like I could have done. I was like, "Oh, you're going for it. Like you have You're really going for it. You're swapping
Yeah.
heads. You're doing dialogue. You're doing sims. You're building out whole. I was like, you guys are crazy. Like, there's no way I can handle
Yeah,
that.
and some guy had like what 50, 60 metahumans in his scene or something.
Yeah.
Like I was like, what? Like it just scared my computer shut down just looking at that scene.
Yeah, yeah. You're like, oh
It's
no.
just like no. Um, but I mean, no, I think you got to have a challenge, I guess.
Hmm.
But for me, I don't know. I think it's opened a whole new world for me.
What's like the next thing you're super excited to do with it?
Well,
Obviously, you're talking about doing another one, but is there
yes,
like
because for
certain?
me, like I wouldn't, my number one thing wouldn't be looking at this for like say doing concept, right? Because I'm like, okay, if I have something that I can use in like my first thing is always like if I have a concept and I need to do it, let's say in half a day, I need to, finish, right?
Hmm.
You're probably going to say, you know what, I'll skip the Unreal because it's just faster just to do it in Photoshop
Hmm.
because I only have 4 hours.
Hmm.
But if I had longer time, then I would use Unreal.
Hmm.
Uh, and I think it depends on what, right? If I'm doing landscape stuff, maybe I would just go straight to Unreal and quickly light it and do all this stuff and then bring in a frame and finish up in Photoshop.
Sure.
But for me, the thing I'm excited about Unreal for is making the next short,
Mm.
and because I really felt like I connected with people and I really
Sure.
had a good time making it.
Hmm.
And it's very rare that I'll look back at something and still like it.
Yeah.
Like like I'll look back at my concepts and go, "Oh my god, that's crap. I don't want to look at that again." But I look at
Yes.
this and I still feel it,
Hmm.
and that tells me something. And so I want to do something maybe a little bit more ambitious, but
Hmm.
not like crazy unreal ambitious.
A
like
step up,
so
one step up, maybe two steps up. But yeah.
yeah, maybe this time can have, you know, I mean, depending. I mean, I have a couple of stories I'm writing shorts, so you'll see. And maybe I'm trying to mix in like they don't all have to be animated. I mean,
Hmm.
um, uh, and I might do this for this next thing, but sometimes you see in this mannequin challenge, like how they're all trying to stay still and you're moving through the scene.
Sure.
I may do something similar to that, uh,
Mm-hmm.
but I won't tell you the details. But I think it will be appropriate for this, and I think it will be interesting, um,
Cool.
and I think it'll be a lot of fun. Are they doing another fellowship or
Oh, I don't know.
no?
Oh,
I
not sure.
wonder. You know, I wonder because that's such a big production. You
Yeah.
know, it's
Yeah.
like
Absolutely.
people don't understand how much they actually put into this.
Right.
Um,
It's a significant undertaking for sure.
oh yeah, I mean,
Absolutely.
so many people involved.
Hmm.
Is yeah, it blows my mind. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. No, it's super cool. I'm super happy to see your piece and everything. And I wanted to ask you a little bit more about working with the composer because I worked with the composer as well in your process on that. So you said that you kind of sent him or them some shots, or not some shots, some types of music that you had.
Mhm.
As somebody like myself who had not worked with a composer ever, uh, I just wanted to kind of chat about that with you because I thought it was really interesting for me, where I was basically sending him like scenes from a movie or scene or like I basically made a Spotify playlist and I was like, these are songs that I like that I think kind of fit the vibe. And then when they sent me back stuff, um, it was I didn't really know how to direct somebody with sound because I'm used to working in visuals, and so I can say, I like this or this line or this silhouette or this color or this whatever it is. But it was a very weird experience for me trying to direct somebody who I had no experience in their field. So I was curious about your experience with your composer. A little more about that.
Yeah. So I thought about that before because I didn't want to waste his time
Mm-hmm.
because I said, hey, look, I don't know that I can pay your you know, movie rate,
Right.
whether that makes sense. And but it was a
Hmm.
recommendation, so he said, "Hey, I'll cut you a little bit of a break if
Hmm.
I can use the rights for my own track, like my own." I said, "Absolutely." So we worked out a deal, and I thought, okay, how am I gonna tell him what I want and give him feedback in the
Hmm.
most efficient way possible? Because we're all professionals, right? We don't want to just you
Sure.
know mess around with someone's time, and I don't know, make it cooler, like I didn't want to give him any feedback like that, because
Yes,
I
that
had been getting
stuff
that
you've gotten
feedback, and
before.
I
Yeah.
definitely don't want to do that to somebody. You've heard the
Hmm.
make it awesome.
Yep.
Like, what? Okay. So for me, I made sure that I told him the emotions I wanted
Mm.
at whatever time. I mean, like, okay, we're building up. He's on this journey of planting the last seed, and he's not coming back. So it's sadness turned into hope, because it
Hmm.
rebirths, it relives, and I feel that when you tell someone an emotion, it's a lot easier to understand.
Hmm.
So I just thought, okay. And then I told him, and I showed him that scene from Avengers where it's at the beginning where Tony Stark was, you know, he was dying in space, and there was this
Hmm.
like horns playing, and I thought,
Hmm.
wow, that was really melancholic, and I kind of like that, but it's maybe a little too sad.
Hmm.
So I kind of gave him that, but not a lot, just that. And then he came back and pretty much kind of nailed it already. Because I said, and I told him I really like strings. That's just me. I really like violins and cellos and stuff like that. And he's like, okay. So I gave him enough information where, but he tried some things that I would never have thought of, like something more tribal. He had thought of there would like drums at some point, but he mixed it all in such a way that you could barely tell.
Hmm.
And then in the end, there were boy choirs that I didn't even like.
Didn't even know.
Yeah, I was like, okay. And then one of the cuts, he actually went way too much, and you just kind of go, oh, I think it's it's feeling a little, um, uh, it's a little too look at me dramatic. Let's
Hmm.
dial it back a little bit. It still needs to be subtle, because the whole point of all this lighting, all the stuff I'm doing, is subtlety. So it's not like you know oh, lens flares in your face,
Sure.
and
Sure.
like stuff like that. So it needs to kind of go with the visual stark. That's why we start the short in a very, very quiet, almost to a point where you have to kind of lean in and go, is there sound?
Hmm.
Like that's the whole point of it, right? So you kind of, okay, because when someone talks really quietly,
Mm.
you tend to listen more than someone who's just keeps talking and is really high volume,
Yeah, it pushes you. Yeah.
because you're kind of like, what, and I wanted that, and so it really slowly ramps up into. So then I gave him some of the sound, and he kind of listened to it, and so that's how we kind of interface. But he was really good, and honestly, we had two meetings, and it was already there.
That's great.
I don't
That's
know. What
fantastic.
about you? I mean, was it seamless like that,
It
or?
was pretty seamless. I didn't entirely know what I wanted, and I had thrown. I think you saying like, you knew you like strings, and you had like, that kind of melancholy tone. I had picked, I think, too many different types of references that were kind of different. Where I had sort of this um, Tron, Daft Punk, John Carpenter-y vibe, which is like a very synthy vibe in mine,
Mhm.
and then I also wanted like a sort of Nolan-esque strings, sort of heaviness on the other side. And that I think was we went back and forth on like, was it going to be this way or was it going to be this way, and what was the tempo, and all that kind of stuff. So mine was good. I actually had a really great experience working with a composer who was also my friend. So it was just different being like, you're a professional in this thing. I don't really know how to speak the language of this professional. So I don't want to tell you, like you're saying, like I don't want to give you the feedback that is just make it cool, make it awesome, make it something I've never heard before. Right. I don't want to do that because that's not helpful. So a lot of what you were saying was actually similar to what I did, which was like basically more feeling. Like this feels too aggressive or fast, or it's too upbeat, or the inner, whatever it was, it just feels off. And we kind of went back and forth probably three, four, five times on what the final one was. And then he, I ended up giving him my near to final cut probably about a week before the end of the fellowship. And I was like, all right, I'm picture locking. Like I'm done with this because there was a couple scenes in it that I wanted him to match or to have the music match a cut. So like as
Yeah,
soon as
yeah,
it
yeah.
cut, it would do that. So I tried to do that as early as possible so that we could kind of dial it in as fast. But I really enjoyed it. I think that was actually one of my favorite parts was being able to, as somebody like you, like working in concept art or design, you don't really work with sound all that often.
No.
And you're very rarely given sound cues, like from a script or director standpoint or anything, like to really know what the scene or the vibe or anything is. So being able to work with somebody who is adding that to it, and making like what feels like more like a full piece to me, where it does have sound and it has sound effects and it has a moving picture and all that, was really great. It was a really cool experience to be able to do that, and it's bigger. It just feels bigger when you work on something like that. So I really loved it. That was probably one of my favorite things. Where I'm like, I don't know if I personally will do a short again, maybe at some point, but I would like to do pieces that are accompanied with sound, or if it was, you know what I mean, like bringing that element into it. I really liked that.
No, I to me it was the highlight, one of the highlights because um, like you, I never work with sound,
Hmm.
but and this is a testament to Jan, my co-host, telling me, sound is everything, and I'm like, no, it's not, because I hadn't done
Sure.
anything, but this without sound just wouldn't work.
Hmm.
Uh, uh, but
No, I
with
wouldn't have.
sound with crappier visuals probably would have worked. Uh,
Probably. Yeah.
and so to me, I was just felt so privileged to actually have a composer help me. I honestly, it kind of blew my mind, and I just wanted to be respectful of his time, and but the experience itself was like I never worked with a sound guy. I mean,
Hmm.
like not just music composer, but even my friend who was doing the sound. I'm like, okay, I'll give you my feedback.
Sure.
Like it's maybe a little loud here, maybe a little bit there, but because I always thought, what sound, like it's just footsteps.
Hmm.
Fine, it's just
Yeah.
footsteps.
Put
What's
some
so hard?
footsteps in.
Wind noise.
Yeah.
And he was showing me, how he was dialing in certain sounds at certain times, and man, some of those sounds really brought you in.
Mm.
It had
Hmm.
to be done right, and
Hmm.
I was pretty much blown away. Like, wow, I didn't even realize that. And you know, I I never thought I would like sort of being sort of a director,
Hmm.
but I actually really enjoyed it, and I really enjoyed the fact that I couldn't have done any of those things by myself. There's
Hmm.
just no way, and that
Hmm.
we all came together, and then now the success it's having, it's all because of the whole team, and I really dug
Absolutely. Yeah.
because I'll never, it's never alone, and that includes, all the help we got at Unreal,
Hmm.
on the fellowship, I mean, you couldn't have done it without them, but um, that part, I think, got me the most. And I feel, it's undervalued because a lot of things that we do now is very solo, you know, uh, because you're just doing your own painting at home, especially now
Sure.
when a lot of people are working at home, you feel like
Sure.
you're isolated and doing your own thing. But man, when you're part of that team and you see a product come together, it's really
Yeah.
it's really it's really special. So for
Yeah.
me, that's huge, and I think that's what I look forward to. Not only telling the next story, but working with a team that can bring it that extra, or even being
Absolutely.
able to complete it for Christ's sake. Like
Yeah.
I don't think I mean, what would I have done with the music? I probably would have gone on the free
Yeah.
sound sites and
Royalty free something
yeah,
or
done
purchase something.
something, but certainly, it certainly wasn't. It wasn't going to come out the way that it came out. So I
Right.
gotta say, to me, that's super special. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. That's awesome. We had a couple more questions from the chat that I've already kind of tossed at you. One, somebody was asking if you feel like Unreal is good for design, and if you're mostly making models, or if you're just kind of layout or assembling the scene. Um, any thoughts on that?
Yeah,
Just
I mean,
generally, we kind of talked about
I
it.
don't model much these days. I model things I have to that I can't find, a database for. Like the
Hmm.
helmet, it's a personal design, or the ship. But if I can find something, I'll find it and I'll use
Hmm.
it. I try to be as efficient as possible that way because you don't want to. If you're a designer or something, you don't want to get stuck just modeling stuff if you don't have to,
Hmm.
because that's design time. But as a design tool, um, eh, I don't think I've explored enough of how. I mean, I wouldn't design in Unreal unless it's shot design
Mm.
or lighting design, if that's. But I wouldn't like do hardcore design in it in
Hmm.
terms of like modeling. You can't model in it, but I mean, you
Right.
could have like I've seen a lot of good car renders come out of it. I've seen a lot of you can render pretty much anything you want in it, just
Hmm.
like V-Ray style. But there just needs to be a back and forth, and you have to have that pipeline set up.
Hmm.
A lot of times, my pipeline is just I don't UV, I don't do any of that. I just apply shaders and I'm done, and then I do a
Hmm.
render and I paint over it. So it certainly could be. I haven't explored it completely for that, just because Photoshop is still faster for me
Right.
right
Right.
now. But I don't see why not, depending on what kind of design, right?
Yeah, and at the end of the day, you're still delivering an image most of the time, if not always.
Yeah,
So Photoshop is going to get
yeah.
you
I mean,
there
Photoshop. I
quick.
mean, it depends if you really want to do. Uh, I mean, most of the design is going to be either created in Photoshop or modeled somewhere and then rendered somewhere. So if you've modeled it, you could certainly render it in Unreal.
Hmm.
Because
Totally.
I actually know a person who's heading up the automotive the side of Unreal, and there's a lot of people using that for
Interesting.
that. So, but I haven't discovered it yet, so
Right.
I can't say that I do. Not for design, at least.
Yeah. There's one question about your experience with Substance Painter. You were saying that you had dabbled in Substance Painter before this,
Yeah,
or did you?
I mean, I had to paint the helmet and the guy, so
Hmm.
I just threw myself into a quick crash course. And
Yeah.
I mean, I know Substance less than I know Unreal for sure. I mean, Unreal, I
Okay.
actually feel relatively comfortable,
Hmm.
but Substance, I'm like, I barely know anything. But I
Right.
know enough to just get that paint on there, export those maps, and that's it.
That's
But
it.
Substance is super powerful.
Yeah.
Like if you're gonna paint on a model, I mean, you you know, Substance. I don't think Substance can be beat for that. But I do think that Quixel. There's something about Quixel that also has its power. The Quixel mixer.
Hmm.
It's kind of like it was basically like Substance, but a little. I mean, I haven't brought in characters. It just doesn't seem as easy for me. Um, but I think Substance itself is super powerful when it comes to ease of use. I learned it pretty much in half a day, or at least enough to do what I did.
Hmm.
So now I got
Yeah.
to
Pretty
get back
quick.
and do it at some point if I want to paint like this next short I'm doing.
Yeah, totally. Awesome. Um, this has been awesome. We don't have too many more questions. I think we'll probably get some more online later in our comments, so we'll toss. I'll probably send those over to you. Um, but yeah, this has been really awesome, and it's been. Oh, somebody's saying we're having an overlap now with an echo, so it looks like we might be having a tech issue. Sorry, let me just do this real quick. See if that fixes anything.
Mhm.
I think we're back now. All right. Yeah, this has been really great. Um, it's really nice talking to you about the experience too. It's been good to hear, your process going through it, because it's an interesting thing to go through.
Yeah, I mean, especially since we both went through it,
Hmm.
and I'm sure we have different experiences, uh, and I'm sure you've talked to Alex, and Alex has his experience with it,
Hmm.
uh, so it's just really interesting to see. But I think I think you and I have similar experiences and feelings towards the fellowship. Although I
Hmm.
don't know if it's a is it do you, are you going to make more films?
Not at the moment. I think I just want to do more moving picture stuff.
Like what?
Like a, I want to make my portfolio not just when I look at my portfolio, it's characters, and mostly they're standing in front of smoke.
Mm-mm-mm.
I want to break away from that. Like, what else could I do that's changing that? That could be different, right? How could I not? Um, how could I not just show a character with a weird background? How could I maybe create a diorama, or how could I have it be a full-on turntable? It is 3D. Most of the time, my stuff is 3D. So how can I change it to be, you know, to change it to make it more interactive or to just be different? I think for myself, I just see a lot of what I've been doing um, starting to feel a little like it's the same thing over and over and over and over.
Mm-mm-mm-mm-mm.
And so, like, how do I break that up? And I think that's where I see Unreal, or just generally real time, or the access to Megascans, or the access to the Quixel Brit, like the whole Megascan library, could change that, because from myself, it's not always I do more character stuff, so the environment is important for me, but it's more I want to focus on the character. So if I can fill that up, if I can get really easy lighting, if I can get, a little camera move or a pan across or a subtle turntable, like that feels like a way to up the level of the presentation and to up the level of what it's actually looking like and to up the level of just like not just having the same thing that I always have done and have seen a lot of. So I think that's for me where it's like, how could I bring the speed of it, like right now, my main way to do design is to use Keyshot. At least that's what I've historically been using for like 5 or plus years or so.
Mhm, mhm.
And it's good, it's great, but the renders take so long to do, a simple turntable. Probably similar if you're doing it in Maya and V-Ray, it just takes a little while to do it. And so now it's like, I wonder if there's a way to, and this is where I think, for me, I haven't figured out the pipeline yet, but there's probably a way in Unreal or something like that to do something a little bit more interactive, right? To just do something a
Yeah,
little
I
different.
mean, you definitely want to look into some of that automotive stuff because
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot like for what you're saying, it's actually quite perfect in Unreal.
Mm.
Because even when I was rendering the short, I was just amazed at how when we were doing the movie render queue stuff, it was like a lot of custom
Sure.
anti-aliasing and those kind of
Sure.
took no time. It like
Yeah.
for a whole like hundreds of frames was like
Couple minutes.
maximum 10 minutes
Yeah.
maximum, and I
Yeah.
dialed it way up.
Yeah. You're like, just crank the settings as high as you can. Yeah.
So it's just one of those things where it's like uh you know that's a godsend, and I think a lot of people don't realize how good that is because you actually can make a film in it. You can
Mm-hmm.
actually do interesting things. I mean, like we were talking about creatures, I mean, and characters and things you like. I mean, simple way to bring it to life is having some simple moving
Movement.
atmospherics that happen with it,
Mm-hmm.
and you can actually move around it, and
Mm-hmm.
becomes a lot more than what it is. I mean, you can even show it more in context of,
Mm-hmm.
like what it does, what it is, if it's in
Mm-hmm.
fire,
Yeah.
whatever, it's just so much more interesting to me, like seeing a 3D concept than it is
Mm-hmm.
to see just a flat 2D concept.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I understand the need for flat 2D,
Of
stuff,
course. Yeah.
but for my own personal work, because that's when I get to make, the call. I'd want to, like, this next thing I want to do. I was debating, is it a painting or is it a scene? Because it comes
Mm-hmm.
with it two different things. Like painting means, okay, well, I'll spend my time painting it,
Mm-hmm.
because I still don't know this. There's still none of this, matte painting projection thing. So I'll either spend my time painting it, or I'll spend my time substance painting it
Mm-hmm.
and adding whatever models. But it doesn't necessarily need to be animated. Like,
Right.
not every single
Not
thing has to be
everything.
animated. What can I do without involving the animator,
Mm-hmm.
or forcing that? Because if the scene has 50 people, I'm like, it's just
Yeah.
easily
Maybe
get
not.
really, and then you got to do the acting. So, especially for you creature and character stuff, I think, yeah, I mean, I would be very curious to see where this can go for you, because
Yeah.
I think for a lot of people, I can only speak for myself, but I think this has changed a lot of ways that I think about my personal work, because I'm
Mm-hmm.
going, well, maybe I can do another film, and
Right.
then you never know. Maybe two films later, it becomes something bigger. Who knows? I mean,
Yeah. Yeah. I've definitely entertained the idea. It for me, it was just like I think after going through it, it was also like I need to recover from this a little bit because it was just so intense. I was like, oh man, I need like some time off
yeah. So I
after
took a
that.
month off.
Mm-hmm.
Like just completely not opening Unreal. That's why I'm a little clunky, but the
Mm-hmm.
muscle memory is there.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
know where things are, but I was surprised to see you doing all your art jams because it was still in Unreal.
Yeah. You got to get back in it. Yeah, for sure.
So you actually didn't take much of a break.
No, the break was getting back to doing more work. Yeah. So, but it was the break of the Unreal Fellowship was great because it was a nice change of pace and it was great to see and experience just what you were saying, which was like a different way of working and it kind of makes you reevaluate your work and how you, and just generally like your pipeline. I think when you work on personal work or even professional projects, you get into a pipeline and like a series of recipes that you have for how to do a thing, whether it's a background, like you're saying, am I going to do this as a matte painting or is it a scene or is it Photoshop or is it mostly 3D or whatever? And after you do it for a while and you're on deadlines and timelines, you have a way that you do it, but you tend to use at least I've tend to use that process for a good amount of time. And so then jumping into this, which was not just foreign in the uh, software that you're learning, not knowing it going in, but the emphasis on story, the sound, like we were talking about, the editing, uh, the whole. For me, being a character person, it's like I'm going to create some landscapes and some environments and a more than just this person, and then so that was a really great experience for me to um, be out of my comfort zone, and I liked that as part of what this was.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. And personally, I think this experience, not only has done all that, learning technically, but
Mm-hmm.
man, it really made me see that some of this stuff, filmmaking or painting or whatever, it's really about the content itself.
Mm-hmm.
And what are you trying to say, and whether you have something to say. And if you do, it doesn't matter if you're painting it or 3D or film or what, just find a way to say it. Whatever the way that is, just do something that, you feel strongly about,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's a good example of me starting it as a technical exercise and ended up being something that actually changed my own life, because
Yeah.
I actually, through making a film, had some closure of my own, and that's not something easy to have any way you look at it. So I actually, uh, I'm really thankful for the experience, and I
Mm-hmm.
think I love the fact that now I'm not just a concept guy, or I paint, or I do this. I'm just a person who has something to say, and I found the right tools, and sometimes
Hmm.
it might be Maya, sometimes it might be Photoshop Paint, sometimes it might be writing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I know certainly a lot of people have written for this short and found that, hey, I really like writing. Um,
Absolutely. Yep.
so I think it's just, I just encourage people to just go out and have some fun doing what they want to do. Don't,
Hmm.
like, I had to wait 20 years to do this. It's funny
Hmm.
because I actually, after I did this film, I went into my closet and I looked at the storyboards I made of these films I wanted to do, and those storyboards were made 20 years ago,
Hmm.
and I never made it because I was always thought, I'm not a director. I don't know how to do this. And
Yeah.
certainly there were no tools for me to do it. Like, there were no
Hmm.
tools, uh, and
Yeah.
now there's a tool,
Yeah.
and so it maybe opened something completely, and it's all
Hmm.
because of started with Unreal. Uh, yeah, to me is a definitely a special time, and I don't know where things are going to go, but you'll be first to know.
It's kind of just reminds me a little bit of like just being like a more well-rounded creative, like like the Renaissance artists where they were learning to sculpt and they were learning to
Yeah,
paint and they were
just
learning
being
to
an
do all
artist.
kinds of things.
Yeah.
Just being an artist in general doesn't necessarily mean it's one thing or the other. It's it's learning the whole process of it, of doing a film or learning about sound or learning about editing and learning about how
Yeah,
to
yeah,
trim down something to make it like you did, very something simple, but also there's a very powerful message in something that can be simple and it doesn't have to be flashy. And I think you can only kind of learn that by going through that process, which is awesome.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, we kind of forget that
Hmm.
nowadays, and
Yeah.
becoming an artist is, or being the artist that like, obviously a guitar behind you. I mean, if you play music, then
Sure.
that's another form of art. I mean, it's like,
Hmm.
all that, you never know unless you open yourself up to some of this stuff, and it's going to be uncomfortable for sure.
Yeah.
But, you know,
It's supposed to be. You don't know it.
yeah, but I mean, it was so uncomfortable for me that I didn't do it.
Right.
So, like, and but I'm just glad. I'm just glad it all happened. To be honest
Absolutely.
with you, yeah.
All right,
Cool.
Emmanuel. Well, thank you very much. We're actually at time. It's 9:30 now, so that went fast.
Yeah,
It's good chatting with you.
yeah,
Good. I love
absolutely.
seeing your project. It's incredibly moving and powerful, and I really really like it. And um, yeah, I'm just kind of happy that I saw you on the list of names and decided to message you and see how your project is going, and because it was great to see how it's come, how far it's come, and how great it looks. So, thank you very much for spending the time tonight with us to show us it, and really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. All right, everybody. Well, thank you very much for joining the stream. I will be having a bunch of other streams soon. So if you like the event you've been watching, uh, follow us, like us, subscribe us on whatever you're watching, and you'll see a lot more of those. And otherwise, we will see you soon. Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.
Bye.